now.
Okay.
What Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Flagstaff. Thank you for joining us. We are excited to bring you another barbershop talk. This is an evening where we bring the gentlemen together to have a conversation in their own take and their open dialogue about current events and things that are happening in our world. I'm going to keep the introduction really brief so that the guys can jump on in and get into it. And I will turn it over to our host for this evening, Brother Jermaine Barkley. Good evening.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. And
Absolutely. Well, I will turn it on over to you guys.
cool. And I think we actually just lost Brother Hall, but it's been a little while, so I'll introduce myself and then Doctor, I'll kick it back over to you. Jermaine, been a member of Flagstaff community over a decade, part of the Live Black Experience and the African Diaspora Advisory Council for Coconino. And happy to be here, Dr. T.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dr. Martin Tees. I'm a Phoenix resident, born and raised. Moved up to Flagstaff to go to NAU, where I graduated in the School of Communication. After that, I've been back after moving to Los Angeles and then England to work on my doctorate. But I'm back here working at Northern Arizona University in the Office of Inclusion, Multicultural, and LGBTQI plus Student Services, and as well as a former employee of the Murdoch Community Center. So I love this little town and the Black
Yeah.
community that's here and everything that we're doing. So they keep getting me to come back. So I'm here. So hopefully our brothers will jump back on when they can, but you and I can hold it down until then.
Oh yeah, yeah. And for folks who might just be tuning in, we're talking about really just catching up, but there's really a big thing we wanted to catch up on. And Dr. T, I'm excited to get your perspective on it. The slap is what the real dramatic, very exclamation point title is what we titled this talk. I don't think I need to explain too much, but just as a recap, in case folks are watching and don't know, somehow they just don't own a television or don't have the internet, and somehow managed to avoid all of that. It was the Oscars a couple weeks ago, a very prestigious moment for Hollywood. And during the Oscars, Chris Rock, our beloved comedian extraordinaire, came out to present an award, and fired a joke off the hip, um, aimed towards Jada Smith, and her haircut, which she did on purpose. She cut all her hair off because she has alopecia. And he said he excited for GI Jane 2. There was a brief laugh from Will Smith, and then maybe 3 seconds later, Will Smith walks up on the stage, um, and slaps him in the face about as hard as I think I've ever seen anyone slapped on live television, especially wearing tuxedos. Then he sits back down, yells a couple profanities, keep my wife's name out your mouth, and then they move on. He goes on to win Best Actor, maybe like 5 minutes later. He stays for the entire award ceremony. They asked him to leave. He refused to leave. He won the award. He gave his speech. Um, and then Chris Rock declines to press charges, which is a thing in California. That's not how it works here in Arizona. Um, and then for punishment, the Academy banned Will Smith from attending the Oscar ceremony for about a decade. And then to cap all this off in a really neat bow, a video resurfaced a couple days ago of Jada giving an interview on her rounds table talk that she has on Facebook, talking about how she never wanted to get married to Will Smith, and cried on the wedding day. She felt pressured into it. Um, and so that's kind of the entire saga of from the Oscars up till now. And so let's talk about it. Um, I mean, man, when I saw it, I wasn't watching the Oscars because I love film. I love film to death, but the Oscars it's like 4 hours and it's kind of played out now. And, you don't even hear about half the movies that are nominated. And then I open my Instagram and it's just full of images of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and I thought it was a bit. I could have sworn it was a bit. One, did you see it happen live? And either way, what were your thoughts when you saw it happen?
So I gotta do a little disclosure before we get
Please,
into that. So in talking about my career, I left NAU and moved to Los Angeles. So I've worked in TV and film production
you sure
for
did.
15 years. And my first job internship leaving NAU was at NBC. And so although I tell everyone I'm 28 years old, which I'm clearly, the math doesn't math, but I'm 28 years old.
31, 32.
But oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it. But I'll put a plus there just to add that. But first job out of college was working at NBC, and I was the press and publicity assistant for NBC electronic press and publicity. And one of my shows was Fresh Prince in the last year that it was there. So I have a small interaction and connection with Brother Will that actually wasn't that great because he was, trying to leave in a unit, right? I'm not in a, I'm sorry, but NBC. It was the last year of Fresh Prince, and so I think he was ready to become a movie star, right? And they were working with him on everything. So trying to get him to do press that year was really really hard. So he came late, had an attitude, and so was yelling and cussing. So I've seen I've seen the real side of the image when the image is not on camera. Since then, I've seen the brother many a times after, and he is a really cool brother. So I think whatever feelings I have for him, Bad Boy kind of made up for it because I was like, can't hate. That was just a cool ass movie, especially some of those Michael Bay scenes. When they're I think the chasing scene and him and Martin Lawrence. So I can't fault him. That was some good movies, and he's made some good stuff afterwards. But anyway, so I have that experience with him. And Brother Melvin, we're just talking about the slap that was heard around the world when if you were watching the Oscars. And then the other part of that is so when I did my master's and my doctorate, my master's is in creative practice and looking at oral history and Black communities using critical race theory, and my doctorate is on Black film. And so, in looking at Black film and TV producers and production, I was really looking at how people craft what we call or know or think is Black film, of which Will isn't really a person that's done a lot of quote unquote Black film. So, like you, I'm really into it. I normally watch the Oscars. Lately, I've kind of been like, but it's great to be doing a PhD on Black film. And 2 years in a row, Black films won. So now it was interesting though that one was a movie on slavery, and then the next movie, was Moonlight. So I don't know how to process that one yet, but and then to see brothers like they've been making it. So long story short, to say all that, it's just interesting to see what's happened. I feel for the brother, right, and I feel for Chris Rock at the same time. And I think whatever happened that made him did it. And mind you, I wasn't really watching until everyone told me what was happening. So I didn't see the East Coast feed, which was the live feed. So most people who like here in Arizona, you got like the Pacific Coast, so they have a delay. So more than likely, anybody who was watching that was not on the East Coast was getting the tape delay. But if you went to Black Twitter or other places, you could see the actual slap. You could see what happened. And for the longest time I've worked in television, I thought it was a bit. I'm still trying to process like what did I see? Um, was it a joke? What in the joke itself, I can't measure how one should respond to it, but I was like, wow. So I know there's people have alluded to some other stuff that's happened between them. Rock talked about them when Oscar So White was a couple years ago. I didn't think that was that bad, but then again, I don't understand. But I know Jada and Will are doing a lot with Red Table Talks. So I think there's some stuff that's going on. I wouldn't be surprised. I would say if you don't hear them divorcing or separating, but it will be interesting to see what's going on, and we can talk later, so I can get the other brothers in about like the Oscars banning him. I think it's a bit too much. But that, and I still think he should take responsibility for what he did. I can't really assess Rock on his joke because that's what he does. That's who he is. But I do think when we look at comedy, when we look at free speech or whatever, there's a line. I don't think there's anything that can't be made fun of. It's just a question of when, where, and how. And then people have the right to respond and take it to where they did. I wish that wouldn't have happened, but I'm still on the process of thinking it was a joke. So I'm still in that mode, but I know it wasn't. But yeah, cool.
Yeah. Hey Warren, it's good to see you. Thanks for coming by the shop.
Big time.
Hey, how you doing?
What's
Yes,
up?
nothing much. I was looking for the link, and then I finally saw it. So and I've just been listening. I'm yeah, that part.
Yeah. Damn. Yeah. Well, Melvin, we'll cut to you, man. I'm sure by now you at least know about it. You saw it. What was your reaction initially? We'll dig into all the meat later on, but what was going through your head?
I thought this fool has lost his mind. That's what came to my mind. As soon as I saw it, I was like, this fool has lost his mind. I didn't think it was a skit. I didn't think it was staged. I was like, that's, considering everything that was going on that night, how big of a stage it was, the mini so-called first of that night, when that happened, I was like, this is going to be known for forever. So yeah, that was my thought.
Yeah, and it was too damn bad, right? Yeah, because he won a couple minutes later. He won Best Actor. Not just for the Black community. That was his first win, Best Actor for an Oscar, right? We don't get a lot of Black actors that win at that level to begin with. But if you ask me in 2 years what I remember from the Oscars in 2022, it's just going to be Will Smith got on stage and slapped Chris Rock so hard his ancestors felt it. That's the only thing. I'm not even remember he won an award. I'm not going to remember who. I don't even really remember who won Best Picture. I don't remember who won before that. I just remember Will Smith got on stage and slapped Chris Rock. Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. Big time. What were you thinking?
Yes, sir. I can't say I have a different approach. I just have some additional things.
Mm-hmm.
One of the 48 laws of power is all publicity is good publicity.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That part. You just said it. The only thing you're going to remember, and people say, oh, Will Smith, not the actor. Oh, Will Smith, the guy that slapped Chris Rock. Yes, it will cost him. Yes, it will be some settlement, or maybe not. We don't know. One of the funniest memes I saw was I Googled Chris Rock's net worth. I Googled Jada's net worth. I Googled Will's net worth. And I Googled my net worth. I didn't come up. And what that's saying is, in the bigger scheme of things, those individuals play in a totally different realm as the majority of us. Mm-hmm. It's easy for us to have commentary, and I believe that we do, but that arena is different. We all can have an opinion. You know what they say about opinions. But, I look at it from another perspective as well. I really, really thought long and hard about saying this. So I really am going to tread lightly because there's another direction I could.
Stomp in it. That's what
hold on, let me go here first, and then you'll understand. Because some people will have some problem, and I think the direction I want to go in, it may be some. I don't want to say blowback. The perspectives from a gender perspective will be different. But take this on for instance. Initially, if you saw the cameras, Will Smith laughed. It was haha. It was a joke. Chris Rock is a comedian. He went there. I personally didn't think the G.I. Jane joke was too bad. You know, he didn't say, hey, you know, your wife looks like the statue. You know, he didn't go there where he could have. That would have really felt bad. So once she, you know, basically gave him that eye, he felt compelled. Now, here's where I'm going. Let's say that he got this eye and was like, uh-oh, I have to do something. That's where, you know, where Mel and Martin talk about he was just dead wrong. He was wrong. He was just out of line. When you talk about defending somebody, there was no physical provocation. It was just words. He has made many of jokes in his life, and every comedian has. But you do not respond in a physical manner to those words. We teach kids that, you know, sticks and stones may break my bones, blah, 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 and everybody knows the narrative. But for him to choose to resort to physical violence for a comment that he initially laughed at, what does that really tell you? Now, here's the part. This is the slope I'm going down. Let's say that Will Smith has some emotional issues, and I think we all agree that he does in that relationship. But again, I can't knock that man's relationship. I'm not in his house. I just know the non-alpha male response when I see one. An alpha male, truly alpha male, would defend his woman in any physical sense where there was danger. But if there were words, he could have said words. There's a number of things he could have did, but he chose to do that.
I could have walked out, right?
Absolutely. In protest, and that would have, you know, and then come back and get his award and whatever. But he knows Chris Rock, and as an alpha man, let me holler at you backstage. Me and you, we need to talk right now. So given that perspective, you know, you want to understand that, okay, here. Oh, there you go. Okay, thanks, Mel. So let's say here's poor Will Smith. He's just a shell of himself, and he's in this twisted, abusive relationship, and oh, poor him, and he has mental health struggles, and you know, we really should be considerate. Okay, I can accept that, but then if you're in this situation and then you get on stage and you do something that's totally out of character, unprovoked, for what? To save face? And let's say he did, okay, yeah, baby, you happy? And then people look at him like, oh my God, Will, poor Will. But Will made a choice. And the slope I'm talking about is that when there are people in situations that, let's say you're abused, and people say, oh my God, you know, your partner abuses you, and we need to look at the abuser. But people are in situations where they have to make certain choices. And I understand the psyche where some people can't get out of it and all the other stuff, but that was an educated choice. And when I say educated, people get on me and say, well, that wasn't smart. I say, I never said it was smart. It's educated in the fact that he thought about it. Absolutely. That's all. You know, and so if that situation, I don't want to use the word toxic because toxic is so overused. If that situation is not good for him as a person, then you have to leave. I think we all deal with situations that are not good for us, and we have to figure it out. And I really think in this society, we men, so many of us have not embraced our alphaness, and alphaness is not some Neanderthalic perspective of where you're hitting people over the head, but it's just being a man and taking control of a situation. And we've gotten away from that, and so that's where we are. So that's my 2 cents on it. Yeah. We could talk some more, but
oh yeah, we're gonna. Yeah, that wasn't bad. Hey, that wasn't bad.
But you know,
yeah,
I thought that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was gonna say I thought that's a good perspective, Warren. I think, you know, the sad part of it is that I think, you know, a lot of people have weighed in. I really like what D.L. Hughley said, and I really like what Steve Harvey said, and actually Charlemagne the God too. And they were just talking about why Will may have felt compelled to do what he did. And a lot of it had to do with the location and the timing, and if he was really thinking, he probably would not have done it. But because he could do it in such a way and probably get away with it, because it was live, because, so that, and for me, when we talk about it, I'm still like in the stagedness of it, because I know it wasn't a joke, but in my head, I'm still like, this could not have been real. I cannot see how this brother got upset with Chris Rock making the G.I. Jane comment when actually
that movie
Jada
came like 30 years ago.
So,
right? It was 30
hey,
years
Dr. T.
huh? It made me, but Jada looked good as hell. Like, so I was like,
So,
so whether she's got alopecia or not, like, and I mean, I understand that, but she looked good. So I don't
I don't
understand where that came from. But yeah, go ahead, Melvin.
I don't think the joke had anything to do. I think it was time and opportunity.
Mhm.
I have if any of y'all have seen the movie Friday, I have Chico. That's the dog I have. And our dog Blue was attacked by a pit and a another small dog. And I mean, they got him good. I was able to pull him off. A little while later, I take him out for a walk, and a small dog approaches, and he pounces on that dog. And it was because that dog was smaller. He knew he could take advantage of that dog, and that dog wouldn't be able to fight back because of time and opportunity. So you have to keep in mind, Jada admitted she didn't want to marry this guy. She has her daughter writing letters to dead men that she's never met, talking about, I want to meet you and I miss you. And then let's get the elephant in the room. She slept with her son's, one of his best friends,
And then
had
live
her
streamed about it.
husband on national TV and emasculated him to the point where when time and opportunity came, he bit the first little dog that was in his way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I wondered like if that was like The Rock on stage, if The Rock cracked that joke, is Will Smith getting on stage and slapping The Rock? Probably not, right?
Better
Maybe,
yet,
probably
Jermaine,
not.
if Colin Jost or
Yeah,
Colin Farrell
yeah,
were giving that joke, would he have jumped on stage?
yeah.
But I think he probably The Rock, maybe no. I think anybody else, I think I think yes, and I would say yes because it kind of goes back to you talking about the dog analogy, but I bet you he thought, and and I can't get in his head, but I'm thinking one, I think they have a relationship of some kind, and I don't know what the animosity is if there is or not, but it's can I take you, right? So Will Smith probably thinks I can whoop anybody's ass. Now The Rock, someone else, he might say no, I ain't gonna go there,
Nah.
And you also may think like I can slap this brother, and he's more than likely not going to do anything else back to
Yeah,
me.
I bet
That
he's
you
not
know what I
gonna.
mean? So
But he
so
wouldn't have
that
done that to a white guy. He
I think
wouldn't have
he would have.
slapped unless it was like somebody like David Spade.
Oh no, I
He
think he
wouldn't
would
have
have.
slapped an average sized white guy.
I kind of think he would have, and I say that because Will, when you look at Will in the process of Hollywood, if there's any other black male actor out there right now, Will is a product of the Hollywood machine where they took him as a black man. And if you look at all the majority of his roles, he's transcended blackness in a way that Denzel, Samuel L. Jackson, Jamie Foxx, all these other brothers have not. Will, for the longest time, was like the white go-to person for black men because he did not make black films. He was just a
He's
black person,
non-threatening. Yeah,
and he was non-threatening. He used every kind of quality that we have as black people, but put it in films that were transcending. So he's had that status for the long time.
I,
The only thing he could not get that he got finally was that Oscar, and the Oscar is the pinnacle of being in Hollywood, being an actor, a filmmaker, or whatever the case may be. So I think that they put him at such a point, and Warren, you brought up a great point about looking at like their net worth. Both of these brothers make over $100 million a year, probably worth over $100 million a year. So he's at such a level that I think he would have done anybody that he felt, you know, I'm gonna say use the word beneath him, and that's my word, maybe not his. So that he probably would have done that. Now again, The Rock, you know, somebody else, like he ain't gonna, if Denzel made that joke, he ain't gonna go after Denzel. He ain't gonna go, you know, if Diddy did it, he wouldn't go after Diddy. You know, I think he went after Rock specifically because he knew that he could.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with. I see where both y'all are coming from. I'm kind of closer to where Melvin is, where I think I almost got the sense that he knew he was hitting someone else in the Black community, and we would kind of be okay with it. Like he knew, okay, I'm not hitting somebody that's like, you know, this national beloved, you know, middle America guy. I'm hitting somebody that would perform at the Apollo in the 90s. And so maybe I'm gonna get away with it, right? But going back to what y'all said about Jada looking over at him, I don't know if he would have even did anything. That's real power, man. But to look at your spouse and then he gets up out his seat, because I saw him, he laughed, you know, he shook it off, and he said in his acceptance speech, it's hard that, you know, nowadays people feel like they can say whatever they want about you, and you just gotta accept it. And he looked like he was gonna accept it, and then she shot him that look,
Man.
and then
Jermaine, I think y'all are just thinking about this on an elevated level and not as Black men. As a Black man, if I got a choice to slap you or Warren, I'm gonna slap you because I think my odds are better. I'm not gonna slap somebody who I think could whoop my ass.
And
he looked at Chris Rock and he was like, I could whoop Chris Rock's ass without a doubt.
But that's my point. That's my point. Because I think if you talk about The Rock, you know, physically, whatever, he can't whoop The Rock and they might go into blows. But if you look at any of the other white people that they talk about, if you look at Rock, I think Will Smith is at an elevated point to where, yeah, he's going to look at like, you know what? I can try to kick everyone else's ass and more than likely get away with it or beat them up in a way that, you know, like I said, if you look at Denzel, he probably ain't going to do that to Denzel. Well, he ain't going to do that to Denzel. But he wouldn't do it to The Rock. He wouldn't do it to anyone that he physically knows that I think would take him out. But I think all the other people, he's put them on a plane to where he says that, like, you know, I can do that. Trust me, if it was any three of us, I'm pretty sure he would do something. You know,
he didn't do anything to August. He has not done anything to August, and August is a $105.
Even more relevant, though, Wanda Sykes and a couple other comedians cracked jokes about their marriage that same night. He didn't say nothing. He didn't like yell. They didn't get up.
I wonder if it was to a point that he got to a point where
it built up.
You know.
So two things. One, on the August Alsina thing, I just want to talk about that for a second. First of all, they were broken up. Okay, they were apart. So all bets are off. I mean, and fellas, we've been there. When we not with somebody and we do what we do, hey, charge that to the game. You can't say nothing to me. Okay, bet. Okay, cool. That works that way. Secondly, August, as a man, why August snitch? He did that for clout. That's why men don't respect him. It's like, dog, you smashed and then you snitched. It's like, you know, you need to keep that. And then you talk about somebody who was all emotional and all in his feelings, that dude. And that dude right there is just, and I liked his music. I haven't listened to him. I haven't listened to it since. Because for me, it's like he don't get it. You can't talk about all this in your music and portray this, and then you soft as a cookie out of the oven, and you know, and then you snitched and you just messed the game up. So for the men who would be in that situation, the majority of us be like, yeah, you know, you go with that. You know, you did what you did, and you know, cool. You know, you ain't got to talk about it. The other thing is we touched on it is the emasculation issue. And now going back to what Mel talked about, August Alsina, going back to I never wanted to marry him. I cried all the way down the aisle. We have, you know, and I'm paraphrasing that our relationship is different, blah, blah, blah. And this whole idea of their relationship, I'm not trying to count on it, but I'm sorry, comment on it. But when you look at how Will was portrayed in the media after that red table talk, I don't think a single after the whole August Alsina thing, and he's there with the tears in his eyes, and that's just as famous as the Jordan meme now.
Yeah, damn.
You know, it's like everybody looks at me, all the men just go, damn, dog, I'm sorry. You know, they want to, you know, get shirts that say, you know, free my nigga Will. You know, it's just like he caught.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you look at that, now whether it's gonna cost him or not, that's the one gangster thing he did that real G's go like, dang, he did that? You know, but we still don't look at it as he did that. You know what I mean? Like, we look at it, he did that physically, but like, dog, you smacked Chris Rock. It's like, now if he just slapped the Rock, we'd have gave Will some, you know, like, yo, Will Smith is that dude, man. He smacked the Rock. But
oh yeah,
he smacked
Chris
Chris
Rock. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And you know, the interesting thing, so kind of what I'll try to do in the conversation, and I certainly understand what you're saying, Mel. I understand what you're saying, Warren. I think if we go back to like how you craft images in Hollywood, I think you want to, when you go back and you think about Will, and you think about Will up until they started doing these table talks, you don't really know a lot about the underside of Will when he's not on the camera. You just know Will as a successful Black actor who, you know, for the longest time, for probably, you know, maybe the last 10 years, you know, he used to be the summer box office, right? Will was the go-to money person. So that's all you heard. It was Big Willie style. So you never got into his personal life, and they never showed his personal life. I think now when we're starting to see, you know, Jada talk about their relationship, what she didn't want to do, how she didn't want to do it. I mean, there was lots of conversations in Hollywood about them and their relationship that I think they're exposing somewhat now, and how crafted it was. I don't think we really know how much of that is until she's now putting all that out there. August put that out there. And so I'm wondering if we're seeing this brother really now react in ways that he could not for the longest period of time. So now you kind of see him as human, you know, and not saying that what he did was right, but, you know, what brother, you know, what man, and then I also don't like the narrative that he was defending his woman, because I don't necessarily believe that was true, but I do think maybe we got to that breaking point to where all the stuff that's been going on in the press, you know, then you get there at the Oscars. Yeah, he's gonna sit there and try to tough it out and have that thick skin, so he laughed until she looked or something happened. I don't know. I'm still at that disconnect to where, like, what did this brother really say that finally broke the camel's back?
Hey, Dr. T.
Yeah.
I'll just say this. In the barbershops I've been going to for the last 20 years, he's soft as Charmin. I mean, Will ain't nobody hard. Will ain't nobody that, you know, I mean, his reputation in the barbershops I've been to is, yeah, he do some good movies, but his woman control him. He's a cuckold. He you know, he surrounded himself with goons, but he wasn't a goon. He didn't have no street cred or anything beyond, you know, his
like,
movies.
Here's the thing is, like, he didn't, the thing that bummed me out about it is he didn't need to be a goon because he a millionaire. So, like, at that point, how you getting so pressed about, you get so pressed about this joke? And I agree. I don't think he was defending his woman. I think he was defending his own ego. I think he was like, everybody gonna see me not do anything about this, so I'm gonna show him I ain't no punk. I don't think it had much to do with her at all, except for she's putting me on blast. Is this gonna be like another red table conversation where next week she on Facebook Live talking about how, you know, I didn't defend her, I need to go ahead and defend myself? and just get ahead of it. But to shift gears, we've been talking about Will Smith. Let's talk about Chris Rock, right? Let's talk about Chris Rock. So, Chris Rock, it was a slap, it wasn't a punch, but he took it like a champ. He didn't buckle too much. He straightened his collar out. He tried to move forward. He tried to crack a joke, and then he moved on. What were your thoughts on how Chris Rock reacted? Would you have reacted a similar way? Was that the best way for him to react? And then he didn't press charges either. He declined. What are your thoughts about all that side?
You know what? I think it's magnanimous. If I can just jump in real quick, I think it's magnanimous that he didn't. The problem for me, again, and this is like straddling all the intersections that I have from working in entertainment to, being a Black man, being a man, like, what would you do? I still would be processing, what the hell did I say that made you go off that way? And again, I think there has to be more to this than saying that your wife looked like G.I. Jane because of her hair. So, and I know they have a history of some kind that people have alluded to. So for me, I'm that inquisitive person that's like, okay, so what's the history behind all of this? I think, to get hit, and on physical TV, and a live production like that, which is worldwide and global, for him not to fight him back, I think is magnanimous. I can't fault him. I think, and even not to press charges, I think that's honorable. I think, and the cool part of it, there's nothing cool about it, but I think he just needs to ride it. If we're looking at, and going back to what Warren said about bad publicity and good publicity, right now everyone's in love with you because of how you handled it, and they're villainizing him because of what he did. So I would just kind of be like, I don't need to do anything worse to him. And it was just a slap. Now we got into like he hit me with the microphone and the cameras, and we just wrecked the whole Oscars. Then yeah, we might have a problem. I can't tell you that I wouldn't have responded that way, but I know. Yeah, I'm glad it wasn't me, and I'm glad I don't have to think about what I would do. But I know I'd be mad as hell. The person actually out of all of this who should be mad is Questlove. Questlove won that Oscar. The one that
who should be mad? Yeah, that one right after.
Because you're talking about what you don't remember. That was a good ass documentary to be awarded, and quite honestly, it's overshadowed by everything. So if anybody should be mad, it should be Questlove.
So I just want to jump in. So take a look at us four.
Mm-hmm.
And if you guys got to be brutally honest, and all four of us had an opportunity to be on stage, and then Will Smith would have slapped one of us. Which one of us, and rank it from there would have been a fight on the stage to would have taken it. So who's the number one person? And I think we all know this answer. Who's the number one person of us that it would have been a full-out brawl on the stage? Who would that have been?
Melvin fight.
Right.
Melvin goes.
So all right, and we all know, that's Mel.
But
Mel's self-admittedly will tell you his elevator does not go all the way to the top. Then who's number two?
I can't. I don't know. I would love to say
probably you.
I'd say yeah. I think Warren. I think if there's a question, I think you and Mel are probably not the question. I think Jermaine and I'm wondering like at what point if I took it, I tried to keep going on, and then when I just jumped on him like from.
Here's the thing though, as a boxer, I would have rather gotten punched than slapped though. I don't know. I hear what y'all are saying, but if he punched me, like if I'm on stage and I get punched, that's like sport. I can associate with that with sport. I can roll with it. But the level of disrespect
that's too
specific to the Black community more than anything, of getting slapped in front of people.
So
I don't know. I might have to hit him.
This is why I asked that question, because I put it at number one, Mel, number two, me, number three, Martin, and then number four, you, Jermaine. Because Jermaine's like Will Smith's song. He's a nice guy. How you doing? I don't know if you guys heard that song. That's Will Smith, right? So of us, you're the nice guy. But don't get it twisted. You can only be pushed so far. And then the male comes out in you. And that's what I want to talk. So we all have that threshold. And Doc T talked about it and fact that how much had he taken? And you got to think about that. Here's another side note. Let's say, what if this is a backdoor agreement? Look, it's going to get us a whole lot of press. I'm going to smack you. And we're going to take a whole lot of heat and all this other stuff. But all I need you to do is not do nothing and not press charges, and I'll take whatever the heat, and we both win. I'm just saying, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm just saying.
Chris Rock shows all finished selling out the next day. All his tours, next day, they sold out.
Well, you know, but he sold out because everybody wanted to hear what he had to say. And he said that right now I'm still processing
I'm not talking about it.
I'm not talking about it. There's a point that I will be. And I think he also, when they tried to yell at, and, you know, call Will every kind of name out the book, I think he told him, like, that's not cool. Let it go. So I think, you know, I think we're, you know, which kind of comes back to that question of, like, what did Chris Rock do? I think still trying to process it. But I think what he has done is tried to take a high road. Like, you know.
Well, here's the thing is, Will Smith says Will Smith just dropped an autobiography like last year. And he talks about growing up in an abusive household where his dad used to hit his mom. And he talks about at one point one of his most vivid memories is he remembers his dad hitting his mom so hard in the stomach, blood came out her mouth, but he was too young to do anything, like to physically defend her. And how that stuck with him up to this day. This was before he hit Chris Rock. But he writes in the book that stuck up with him to this day of, like, you know, I was weak. I didn't defend the woman in my life back then. I never got to redeem myself. He talked about he met his dad when he was older. He was in a wheelchair. He thought about pushing him down the stairs. You know, like, I could get my revenge right now. And he didn't, but he still goes on the fence about, you know, how do I make up for that guilt? And so I don't even know if it had anything to do with Chris Rock at all. I think,
absolutely.
I think except for that Chris Rock was smaller and he knew he could get away with it. I think he barely even heard it. Because the joke was like, I mean, everyone was like, oh, she has alopecia. That's not cool. Yeah. But how vain is it to assume everybody just know your wife got alopecia?
And
I didn't know Jada had alopecia.
But, and the crazy part is, how crazy is that to know that, but then to look at her and be like, Jada was looking absolutely gorgeous. Like, you know, and it was bald hair. I mean, like, so I thought so. I can't speak for anybody else.
Yeah.
But I thought she was looking fine as hell for someone.
Man, she looked like the trophy they were giving out.
Well, hey, you know what? And that trophy is fine if you get it too. But you know, but I mean, I don't think she looked bad. Like, you know, so I don't see. And she maybe had some other kind of costume looking like it from the movie or something like that. I guess I could, you know, see why you were making fun. But I just don't. I don't see it. But I'm like Warren. I wonder what the backstory was, because I don't know that it was so much like, we gonna do this and see how it rolls. But I wonder if it was something like, man, you're always talking about us. Don't say nothing about us at the damn Oscars, you know, otherwise it's going to be me and you. And then he did, like, you know, I'm wondering if it was something like that. You know, I'm just still trying to process, you know, what it could have been. And it just, and I've been at those award shows. I haven't been at the Oscars, but I've been at the award shows where stuff has happened, you know, so I know that, you know, it can get rowdy. I don't think they ever think it was at the Oscars that would happen. Someone put in the chat, do you think that it made white people feel uncomfortable to see Will act out of character? And I would say, yeah, you know, because I think the image of Will has always been so smooth and clean. And I think, like you were saying, Jermaine, I don't think, you know, for 40 years now, Will has been that person from Philly. You know, so whoever he was and whatever he experienced from Philly, he moved to Hollywood, you know, and he's been in the Hollywood machine, you know, since I think he was 20. So, you know, could he still have parts of that? And again, there's a lot of him that we don't know if we're not, you know, once the cameras are off, we don't know what happens. And I'll tell you this, I know that there's a story, and I've been trying to find it. He got into a fight at the Oscars a couple years ago. And I think it was when he was up for Muhammad Ali. And I don't know if it was Jared Leto, but there's another white actor or someone that he got into a fight with off camera. And then, you know, they were gone. So and it's not really talked about. I have to look for it. So I think he has a personality, where, he does what we, like I said, when the cameras are on, we got Willie style, right? When the cameras are off, I think it's a different person. Like Mel said, I don't think he's hard. I don't think anybody's gonna think he's hard. But he damn sure got enough money and clout, so. But yeah,
Absolutely. So this is something I don't think I've ever talked about this publicly. The question was, does white people feel comfortable? Blah blah blah, and then these narratives, the way Chris Rock dealt with it. I worked professionally with at-risk kids for over 25 years, but there is one incident that just made me stop and go back and embrace my nerddom. I've always been a nerd, and now I'm IT. I still help kids, but on a very, very limited basis. I don't do it the way I did it. And there was an incident with a young lady, and the mother was right there. This young lady was, to call her a brat extraordinaire is really, really being nice. Long story short, in holding her accountable, this young lady spit in my face in front of her mom. And I left. I didn't do anything. So I'm going back to Chris Rock getting smacked. So the South Central in me, all bets are off. But at that moment, especially as a black man and as a big black man, if I smack and this is a little white girl, if I smack this little white girl, what happens?
That's a wrap.
There's just no way I'm winning that. And I had to think about it, and I just said, I gotta go. And when I got up to leave, the mother said, "Oh, you're just going to leave? You're just going to punk out?" And then that crazy guy in my head he almost came out. But then I left. And then after that, that's when I said, I just don't need to do this anymore because like Tupac said, I ain't no killer, but don't push me, and that was it for me. There was nothing else because the next step, then South Central Warren was going to come out. And I've never been a thug, that's never been my nature, but I got that side of me. And when you know my story and everything I've been through, I have so much rage, anger, and frustration built up that if I ever get upset, I smile and I laugh and I leave because I'll be the guy that had that temporary insanity and I will snap. So if I know that about myself and I'm cognizant of it, then I need to refrain from those situations because I know my potential. And that's the truth of who I am.
Yeah.
All the smiles and everything else. Yeah, that's me. But there's that other side. So I say that. Go ahead.
No, I sorry to cut you off. I think you make a great point about, when your character is tested. And I think, the quote is failing me right now, but I think, a measure of a man, is based on how they handle adversity. And I think the reality of that is I had a student that was here that threatened to knock me out because she was acting crazy. And so I just said, you know what, I said, you don't even need to think about that because I can tell you right now, Dr. T and you, I'm going to rearrange this room with you. I don't care whether you female, male, crip, crap, crazy, you're not going, if I don't do it, you're not going to hit me. You're not going, you damn sure can't spit on me. I think spitting on me, I think is where we just, whatever. But I think the other part of that though is, Warren, how many times has that happened? Until where you get to your breaking point, and then all smiles and laugh is over, and then Warren from South Central comes out. And I don't think that, and I said that about character and adversity, but sometimes, you can do something that's not in your character, right? And it's based upon the situation. And I would think anyone spitting on you, and I don't care, unless it's a toddler, or whatever, there's a reaction, and of course, which kind of gets into you being a black man. Both of us, I think, are over 6 foot. There's all these kind of actions that, people like, I think someone else, they may have taken differently, which is, an interesting part of that conversation. But I think, what's your breaking point? Like, you know,
Yeah.
and when do you snap? And I see you, Melvin, now I'll be quiet in a second. But I think, you know, that like going back to that question of the four of us, who do we know who's going to react first?
Mhm.
Like I said, I would agree with you, and I'm still kind of torn between Jermaine and I, because Jermaine looks like, you know, he might go crazy. You know, I'm gonna think about it for a second, but then I have a moment. Don't let it be fooled. I mean, I'm in South Phoenix, but you know, don't let it be fooled. I'm not that person, and I'm never gonna pretend to be that person. But yeah, I don't have a problem also cussing your ass out. So you know, and especially when it comes to working with students, I cuss students out in front of their parents. You know, and I talk to them with their parents there, just to be like, this is what's cool because I want you to know how I am. You know, so they understand, and it hasn't been a problem as of yet. And I haven't done it as of lately. But like I said, when the one student told me they were going to knock me out, I just said, I said, you know, you don't even need to think about that because you're not going to win. Because I guarantee you, I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you one way, and then I'm gonna get you the other way. Because I'm getting, you know, you'll be out of school, you'll be out of whatever. So you don't even need. We don't even need to go there, you know. And we don't even need to see the side who's gonna win because I know I'm gonna win anyway, you know. So, and that's kind of how I've handled it in certain circumstances with students. But yeah, it's crazy. What were you gonna say, Melvin?
No, I was just listening and chuckling, but also thinking about Chris Rock and how, you know, looking at it from his perspective. I can't get past that. If Will Smith had to punch him, that'd been one thing. The most disrespectful thing you can do to a black man is slap him. Goes back to slavery. That's how, you know, one of the ways the master used to chest if he wanted to embarrass you. And, you know, so Will Smith, you know, if he was really, he could have knocked him out like LL Cool J,
Easy.
but he slapped
Boom.
him. My other thing with it is this is why I know this is bigger than Jada and deliberate and premeditated. He calmly walked, turned his back to a man he had just slapped and walked away. So it was either stage
Or
or
he wasn't gonna do something.
there, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you said it was staged or it was what?
Or like Jermaine said,
Okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I agree.
you don't turn your back on somebody that you just hit. If you like really trying to prove a point and you steal off on someone, either you're deboing them and you just know they ain't gonna hit you back,
Mhm.
or you
Yeah.
got some kind of agreement or something. I mean,
Well, I'm like I said, I go back to say on this topic that I think what Will did, he did because he knew, in many ways, that the consequences were not going to be great. I think he knew that he did it because, you know, he think he could take the Rock out, Chris Rock out, and you know, and it was disrespectful to slap him versus punch him or stand over him and cuss him out, do what you know. So yeah, I mean, I think it was just disrespectful the whole way. And it's sad that it was both of them. You know, I think the other conversation gets into what does that do for us as black men, which I don't think, you know, none of us were there, so it don't impact me at all. You know, and like Warren said earlier before you came on, Melvin, when I look at their net worth and I look at my net worth, I can talk about this all day long because that's what I do. But as far as me caring, I'm kind of at a point where there's other things that I think people want us to talk about that have more relevance. And you know, and even them banning him for the Oscars, you know, I'm all right with that. Like, you know, because he got what he needed, which was the Oscar.
and he
You
can
know,
still
so
technically win and get nominated for an
yeah,
Oscar.
he just
He
can't
just
do
got
it.
banned. He can even go to the
No.
after party.
So if he gets nominated again, that ends the ban. That ends the ban. All he has to do is get nominated again, and they have to let him attend.
Yeah. So I mean, you know, and you know, and again, this comes from me working in the business, you know, and whatever. I just don't, you know, you talk to me about like, you know, Roman Polanski, talk to me about, you know, Mel Gibson, talk to me about some other people that, you know, or even oh God, his name was Warren, oh, it's what the deputy
Harvey.
Harvey Weinstein. There you go.
Yeah.
Talk to me about all them, you know, before you gonna talk to me about Will
Yeah.
slapping Chris. So that's kind of, you know, if Oscars and the Academy and anybody watching wants to be whatever, I think they got a larger history of disrespecting folks and black folks at that. then I'm gonna worry about what happened between Will and Chris, because hopefully they're gonna work it out and we're gonna work it out and keep going.
So in the chat there was a request about some other topics,
Yeah, I was just gonna
but
move over to.
but hold on. This is about this, and I think we need to finish flushing this one out. But
Yeah.
I'm committed to doing another one, because I really do, as men and as Black men, I really want to talk about those things, because there's no way we can do it a service. Look
Yeah,
at what
that's
we're
fair.
talking about here. The whole thing with Ketanji Jackson and how that went down and everything. The only thing I want to say about that is that, and I just read this, one of the Republicans said, well, the reason why we did this, we want any judges to know that you better be tough on crime. You better not give nobody a slap on the wrist. And who are we really talking about that they better be tough on? It's not their sons, it's not their constituents that get, that don't see jail time or anything. It's us.
not those
It's
patriots
people of
that stormed
color.
the Capitol.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That part. How can you say that and then don't want to come? So
yeah,
the white elephant is in the room when it comes to justice, and we know that justice. They say justice is blind, but it ain't blind when it comes to us.
Sure.
So I really want to commit to come back and talk about that, because I think that, we all have something to say, but I'm really, really appreciating this perspective, fellas, when it comes from men, especially Black men. And I think that, we have to really walk in our masculine light. I'm dead serious, because it's our perspectives are different. And when we embrace that, and I'm talking about roles, I'm talking about traditional roles, and I get that things are different now and all that, and I understand that, but there's certain things that are just uniquely male. And I embrace that, just, and that's who I am, and that's what I can do. But I understand when you look at it, when you look at the disproportionate consequences on men, especially Black men, that's a perspective that we have to talk about. So I just want to know what you guys thought about that.
No, we do, and I agree with you. And what I'll say about Ketanji, one, I think congratulations. I almost said miracle. It's not a miracle. I think it's divine intervention that that this happened, and it happened for her. So I think that's the way it was. It was going to be ordained that way for her and her trajectory. I think the way that she handled herself, in that courtroom, in those trials as they were coming for her, I think is uniquely something to her. But then I think it does speak to Warren, the differences between, male and female, and what is it, what is quote unquote socially acceptable from us. So I think she handled it in a way that I don't know that any other Black male could, and would they have talked to them differently? I definitely think, like you said, as they were asking her those questions, they were definitely, heated, racial, prejudice, bias, and essentially, everything that I grew up with knowing was that, as a Black male, as a Black person coming from, a multicultural, whatever, we have to be 5 times better, and I think she showed that. And it's sad that that's still kind of an unwritten, policy that, she couldn't act a certain way. And it's interesting looking at the dichotomy of the conversation, how, what Will did versus how Chris reacted, versus now seeing how what she had to do to become a Supreme Court justice. It speaks to our resilience, but at the same time, it speaks to the bias about us, for us, and against us, that we have to act in certain ways that may not be a part of our character, but yet, is how we have to get through. And so if that makes any sense, I agree with you that I think, there's a conversation that we as Black men need to have with each other, that I think is something that is specific to us, about us, and for us, that even, our Black sisters, I don't think, they can be a part of it, but I still think it's a conversation that we need to talk about. I mean, I'm in higher education right now, if you look at like at Northern Arizona University, you know, there's a lot of Black women, you know, that are here. There's a lot of Black women that have been in positions of, you know, of leadership and power. But there has not been the same number of Black men, you know, and I'm wondering, you know, in that, is there because people socially are more acceptable working with Black women than they are Black men, unless they're of a certain stature, you know, a certain quality, tone, you know, you name it. So I think looking at that, I think are all conversations that we need to have. But I think we can also celebrate the sister for the accomplishment
Melvin?
that she was in.
Hey, this is the barber shop, so you know there's always one person in the barber shop that has something completely contrary. And while I do celebrate the accomplishment, I think the only thing Black about her is her first name. I think her voting record, I think her politics, I think her very selection was enabled by the fact that who her husband is, the color of his skin, and her political overall spectrum. If you notice on the Supreme Court, aside from Thurgood Marshall, if you wanted to be of color on that, then your partner had to be of the opposite persuasion. So I'm waiting to see when we get a Supreme Court justice whose name is Ketanji or Shaquem, and their partner's wife is reflective of that.
I know Clarence
Real-
Thomas' wife out there texting,
Well, you're right.
texting people not to
Greater.
not give up the election.
You know
But
what?
going back to what Big Time was saying, you know, it's funny, the Black male perspective. It is real different, especially when it comes to issues. We're always portrayed as like these super predator, you know, like when people think of what it means to be an alpha Black male, it's always real athletic, real physical, super predator, you know, like we got branded in the 90s. And it's important for us, it's good to have these conversations to help redefine that for the youth, right? Of like, you could be a man and you should be a man, but that doesn't mean what they're telling you it means, right? That
Right.
doesn't mean Will Smith getting up on stage, embarrassing himself, slapping somebody, you know, because his ego was hurt. My dad always told me the best sign of a man is a man who can control his emotions, right? You can't control what you feel, but you can control what you do about what you feel. And that's not a message we get to broadcast enough. And, you know, going back to this hierarchy of who would react, you know, all jokes aside, I appreciate like the notion that I probably would be on the lower end of the spectrum because of how I was raised. You know, my dad always told me, you know, you're Black dude, you're a color kid, right? You need to know that you don't get the same privileges and rights, you know, in the way you defend yourself and portray yourself. The consequences are going to be swift, right? You hit somebody, even if they had it coming, that, you know, not everybody's going to see it that way. I'm, you know, 6 foot, I'm Black, right? And I just think it's important for us to kind of tell the youth, like, we really need to have a good conversation of what it actually means to be a secure man, right? Because I think the reason I probably wouldn't react violently isn't so much that I don't feel disrespected, but I know you're not a threat to me and you're not better than me, even if you think you are. So it's a high bar to get me to react because I'm gonna go home confident enough to know I'm straight, I'm good, right? Like I know even if you're trying to disrespect me, we're not at the same level, so I'm not gonna stoop down to.
So speaking of levels, Jermaine, so is that more of your upbringing, or is that more based upon what you got to lose? Because people ain't got nothing to lose, act a totally different way.
It's a little different. Yeah. I think it's probably that's a good question. I think it's probably my upbringing is what would make me not do something. I think more than anything at this point, unless I was physically like threatened,
Right.
or I think you're gonna hurt me, right? Like, oh
Absolutely.
man, I'm not going home if you keep going like this.
Yeah.
You know, so I need to defend myself. But no, I guess part of that is also like I got a good job, I got a house, I got kids, like I got a daughter,
exactly.
I got a daughter I need to get home to. Like I can't be messing around in jail because somebody's
absolutely.
And, you know, it's interesting that you asked that question, Warren, because I think definitely it's upbringing, but it's also about what you got to lose. But I also say to people, because we always talk about freedom of speech, and especially like on a college campus, freedom of speech, diversity of thought, even as it applies to that situation with people who are comedians and jokes. I think that there's a line that can be crossed. I think everything is funny. I think there's nothing that can't be joked about. However, you won't know that line until you cross it. And then you won't know until how that person responds. I always tell people, we got freedom of speech, but everybody else has freedom of speech and freedom of expression too. So the question becomes, if I have to make the determination about what I say and how you react to it by the response that I get. So if I say something that calls any one of you to knock me out, I gotta think back on what did I say that did it. And I changed my behavior on the basis that people are knocking my ass out because of what I say. Or, and then, y'all might have to think about like, okay, now if you go to jail or you lose your house, what, see, I don't have any of that to worry about right now. So, how I act may be different because I don't have kids. I have student loans and, that's about it. Like, so I can
So
react.
don't run your mouth to Dr. Teese is what he's trying to say, is because right on the edge.
You segued into a great point that we didn't touch on, is that when is it, I don't want to say okay, people are reckless with their mouths.
Mhm.
And people feel they can say anything in this day and age and without any consequence.
Mhm.
And there has to be some consequence for your actions. You just can't say anything to anybody and then just like, oh no, it's just words. We talked about what's words, and so you can't physically assault them, but you can't go around and just talking and saying crazy things without any consequence. And I think that's why a lot of people resort to physical violence, because there's no consequence other than, if somebody, calls your little daughter a whore, Jermaine, look at that little nigger whore. I'm just saying, if somebody could say that to your face, to your daughter, those are just words, Jermaine. You see what I'm saying? At what point are you gonna get your teeth kicked in? You know what I mean?
At what point is it like sticking a fork in an outlet, right?
Absolutely. You just can't say anything to anybody. And I just want to digress for when I had that gun pulled on me in that parking lot at Walmart in Flagstaff. And
I had a gun pulled on me near there too.
Dude. It was the same day as the Trump rally. And then once, I don't want to get to the big story, but all I know is that there was the dude and the girl. And then as soon as she said, you one of them MF Biden supporters, I knew she was a Trump supporter, and I tried to walk away. And then that's when the swing started happening. And then I'm in fight mode. So South Central Warren came out. But once I saw the gun, South Central Warren had to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because the narrative, and ironically, when I'm holding her, he has the gun pointed on me, and then I swear to God, she starts saying, "Help! He's hurting my kids! Help!" And in the middle of the fight, he's doing this, and a bunch of Karens and Kens are walking, and I'm holding her, looking at the gun. I'm like, "Y'all see this?" And everybody's like, "I don't see anything." And then I leave. Big black man, gun at night, parking lot, Flagstaff, Arizona. I'm not waiting for the popo to show up because I already know how it's going to end.
Yeah.
So as black men, we have to deal with all of this. Everything that we're talking about, in a split second, we have to do this. So going back to you, Jermaine, if somebody said that about your daughter, you only got a split second to think about what you're going to do, because you may want to do something, but what happens if somebody has a gun and you get taken out, and then you look at it, somebody said something about your daughter and it cost you your life. Mm-hmm. Was that juice worth the squeeze? So we don't get the luxury a lot of times of doing that, so it's we have to walk fine lines in multiple directions simultaneously. So and I don't think that anybody understands what we have to deal with. And I just two other things I want to say, then I'm gonna shut up for the rest. I'm gonna let you guys talk. Being out here in the UAE, where I've been living in the past year and a half, I've got pictures. My frat brother and I, we were on a boat. There were boats that come across from an island, and everybody on this day, everybody who was there were from another country, not this country. We were the only two black people on the boat, and they packed like sardines on the other boat. They didn't want to sit with a black person. And this is in another country. It wasn't the local people. It was people they were from the UK. I have no problem saying it. And then I take the metro when I'm in Dubai because I like it. And I sit there, everybody sits around me. And it's not the local people, it's everybody else. So I tell people, they say, how is it over there? I say, it's cool because I don't feel like a nigga over here. Because they didn't used to own us, so they don't have a problem with us. But everybody else, like it or not, there's this perception. Wherever black people are, people don't want to engage. Where'd that come from? So
let's go to Melvin real quick because I saw Melvin was trying to get in.
I think this brings us full circle back to the barbershop with Warren's question and scenario. And Jermaine, we never want to see that situation occur. However, if it does, to Warren's point, the average person is going to think or resort to a violence or an aggravated emotional response. Whereas if we do a better job of educating ourselves, then we would know that we actually do have legal remedies and legal recourses for words. And that's part of the problem in the black community is, oh, I ain't no punk. I'm gonna use my hands. I ain't gonna use the law. Nah, the law will hurt a person worse than your fist because the bruises will heal, your pocketbook won't. That commercial lien on your house or on your car won't. So I really think that, and that's how I am. So, and when Will Smith would approach me on the stage, I would have gotten in a stance to let him know, hey, if you're throwing a blow, I'm prepared and something's going to come back. But second, I would have been right there when the police were there. I'm like, yeah, press charges, on the phone with my lawyer, and let's get this $200 million lawsuit filed. Now you're talking about responding the way other people in other cultures do without violence and having a longer lasting impact and effect.
Yeah,
so
sometimes
I think we need to do a better job of educating ourselves.
Yeah, sometimes it's our own culture of what we tell ourselves is right that limits us and getting any kind of justice, right? Because I don't want to be no snitch, right? I'm not no snitch. I'm not gonna. And it's like, but I mean, yeah, I feel you, man. It's hard, and even I can even feel myself be like, nah, he shouldn't press charges. But at the same time, I'm like, why not, right? He just got hit in the mouth by somebody he didn't want to get hit in the mouth by while he was at work, right? And I can feel myself be like, nah. But like to your point, and they're rich, so it's not any sweat off his back money wise. But what message does it send for us to be like, no, it's good that he didn't press charges because lesson learned? And I'm like, it was lesson learned? I don't know. Will Smith's still rich, right? He still got movies coming out. Right?
But I want to say, I think why he did or doesn't, I think goes back to what do you have to lose? And so, and I think because both of them are at such a state, quite honestly, I mean, he doesn't lose any money. I don't think he needs Will's money. So, I don't know if he should, he shouldn't, whatever. And I'm kind of beyond, what would go on from there. I think going back to what Melvin said is definitely the two things about what Melvin said, which is true, is I think we need to learn how to fight better, and I say fight in quotes, meaning, not everything is worth getting physical. I think the law could work for you. The question is, what's the probability of the law taking that into consideration? Because I don't know what happened to Warren, but the likelihood of it is, if he's saying that they initiated it and then he was there, there's a question of whether if the police got there, how is there going to be treatment of Warren? We have some cases up here where there were some Black students that weren't even in and part of a fight, but they got put in the car and handcuffed as they try to decide, like, you know, which one of the other people who were white that created it. So the law didn't really work for them, you know, in such a way. And it created a scenario to where they don't even feel comfortable going to the law. So I'm
Well,
wondering.
Dr. Teese, they haven't used the law. You're talking about criminal. That's not the law. I'm
Well,
talking about civil. I'm
well,
talking
yeah,
about
yeah, yeah.
money.
No. I agree with you, but I think, but to get there, you know, you got to believe that the system will work for you. And I don't know that
Absolutely.
I don't know that we always see situations where the system is working. And someone put in the chat, you know, going to this person, the white girl that stabbed the boyfriend to death, you know, and she's out partying and something or whatever, but he's dead. They haven't even arrested her and put her in questioning yet for about what's happened, from what I understand. And I think I was listening to it today, that she was out at a bar partying, and somebody else was like, "Why are you here? You killed this brother," you know, whatever. And so they're like, "Oh, they put her in a psych ward because she's suicidal." So I'm like, you know, so even if you think about, okay, and I think they're trying to say that the brother and her had a lot of domestic violence, or, you know, and he was abusing her or whatever. I don't know, but I know he's dead. And I know that the process of the system that starts with the police has not put her in any kind of custody while they try to figure out what's happened. And he's dead, you know, and we're now looking at it. So I think I totally feel you. And I think, you know, we use the legal system in such a way that would work maybe in a different manner. I think that's a great idea. I just don't know what's the confidence
Well,
in getting
yeah.
that to happen.
And to Melvin's point, I think from a community perspective, I think right now it's low, but then it's about creating our own power. Can we make our own lawyers then that are going to fight for us, right?
Mm,
Can we, you know, can we try to get our own folks educated, right? And in these local systems that are going to stick up for us, that we know are kin, right? And
mm.
are going to fight for us. Can we like create our
Yeah.
own system of power? You know, like how we had to do early on during the civil rights, where we had to start. You know, we're going to get our own. We're going to make our own lawyers, you
Mhm.
know, who are going to stick with it and fight for us and teach us, you know, how to advocate for ourselves. It's a large community process
Mhm.
where we not only, and it's too bad that we have to even do that, but where not only do we have to educate ourselves on using the system now, but we also have to play safety by making sure when we get to the system, it's ready for us to give us justice.
Mhm.
We
Yeah.
got to do it the now, and we got to make sure the goal is ready, you know, for us to get there. And it's like we always say, twice as much work as anyone else has to do. But if we never do it, right, if we never start tailoring these systems to work for us, it never will, you know. And again, there's a whole other can of worms, and I agree big time. We should have another talk about it. But I
Oh,
also agree, you know, seeing folks on the Supreme Court, that's so far away from me, you know, and what's going to help me now, you know, in for the optics, I'm like, great, you know, that's awesome. But in terms of if it's gonna, man, we went through all this insults and stuff to get someone on there that we're not gonna really see, right, in a system where they're not really rewriting policy, they're just ruling on unjust systems and stuff. And but that's a whole other can of
Yeah,
worms that we gotta have. Yeah.
you know, but it goes back. That's a whole nother question, and it's a whole nother discussion. And I agree with
Yeah.
you, brother Melvin, that I think that when you look at Katanji, you know, I don't know how black she is, if she isn't. I know she's married to a white man. You know, I know that she's a lawyer, and I know that she's upheld laws and stuff that kind of impact people of color quite a bit. But that's, you know, unfairly, fairly. I think the question that we always need to look at and focus on is, even like you, I always take it back to Barack. You know, Barack was the first black president, but look at what Barack had to do to become the first black president. He couldn't say, you know, everything I'm gonna do is gonna be for black people. You know, he couldn't say, you know, I love chitlins, you know, whatever. You know, he had to play like a magnanimous role to be safe for the larger majority that would vote for him. And I think that's the same thing that she had to do through these, you know, she couldn't lash back out at some of the dumb stuff that they were saying to her, you know, even the stuff that didn't even pertain to the law. That, you know, they were, you know, these are people who say they're constitutionalists, Well, if you look at the Constitution, each and every single one of us, no matter what we do, have a right to a fair trial, judge, jury, and whatever. But yet they were trying to knock her and other people for actually,
doing that.
doing that for people who may have already been guilty, maybe, terrorists and all this stuff. So I think, there's that double standard. And that I think that we as Black people, and especially we as Black men, always have to go through. And I'm wondering, with that process of what both of you are talking about and building that community, how does that start? But then how does it, permeate throughout the culture that, not so much, and I think you mentioned like civil rights. I think civil rights is kind of a hard, because they were picking losers, they were picking winners and losers. So I think, so they went after cases that they thought that they could win. Best thing that they ever did is they televised it. So even then, they played on the hearts and the mind strings, and it's gangster if you really think about what they did to get civil rights over. But I always tell people that, there was Malcolm, Martin, and Marcus Garvey. And Marcus always said, you want to go to Malcolm and Martin. You don't want to come over here because I ain't playing what they do. And I think we probably need all that. But, and I think it's that game, and I say game, that I think that we have to understand and teach all of ourselves to play, so that I think then, we're not picking winners and losers, but we're always constantly, being there and supportive for the people. So I don't know how that works, because I think all of us have been indoctrinated in some kind of way that, and I think it really does boil back down to, what do you have to lose? And so I think, using Warren's suggestion, if someone said that about, Jermaine's kids, the first reaction might be to knock them out. But then the second thought has to be, what happens if I'm no longer here for my kids, my wife,
Right.
or whatever. So and I think we have to, and I'm not a punk, or there's nothing wrong if I don't do what people think I should do, because I had greater things to lose. And I think there was, it was either T.I. or one of the other rappers that used to always get in brawls. And he said the reason why he stopped is because he was making millions, and the people who were coming
Now they could take it from you. Yeah.
didn't have it. So he had to learn a better way to, because he had a lot to lose. So I'm wondering, how we get that into the culture, how we continue to have those conversations.
So to piggyback on what Mel said, what you just said, Doc, think about this. Somebody said that about Jermaine's kids. Jermaine just punches him. Then now they use the legal system to sue Jermaine, take his house and everything, because that court system is going to say, excuse me, Mr. Barkley. So somebody said some words not about you, but about your child. They didn't physically harm your child. Just so I understand, Mr. Barkley, your child was in no imminent danger, and you used deadly force that caused permanent scarring and damage of this poor victim, who I admit did not use a good choice of words, but it did not give you your toast.
Yeah, when I was a crime victim advocate, we used to get that all the time.
Yeah.
The victims, they would walk into a bar, they get drunk, they run their mouth. Somebody hits them because they were running their mouth. And the person that got hit, that's the victim. That's not the one going.
But also remember, not to cut you off, remember, we're in a stand your ground state. So stand your ground,
I don't know, though. I would think so, but that kid from NAU, Stephen Jones, those three white boys went after him. They hit him several times. He shot him after he warned them. He in Florence right now. He in prison.
But what color is he?
I think he's technically on the fence. He low tan.
Okay,
I don't know for sure.
I always remember people of color. So that's the thing. You're stand your ground. Stand your ground, for the most part, says I can come up to any one of you, create the situation, but when y'all knock me out or do whatever and will kill you, then it's or whatever, it's on you, not me, who initiated the conversation. So I think that's where I think, in talking to, what Melvin said, I think that's the problem, is that we know the system don't work the same way for us, and guaranteed, and I would argue and have argued that if someone who doesn't know me comes up to me and calls me a nigga, whether they trying to be nice or whether they're trying to be mean or whatever, that is an assault because you don't know me like that. So now I got to try to process who you are and why you saying whatever's you saying. And I have to use my wherewithal to say either I'm not going to knock you out, we're not going to whatever, don't respond to it. But that's the argument that they'll put and say like, well, and then they look at, well, you're black, you're 6'4", you're 300 pounds. How could that word really, do anything to you? And I think we need to have a system that says, you know what, that word, has been associated with trauma, pain, assault, whatever you name it. So if someone comes up to you in such a way that creates, an assault-like behavior, then they should always be the one that's still the aggressor, right? And I think when we can't use the other stuff to downplay it, but that, Warren, I think you gave a perfect analogy and synopsis how I think it's gone and why, we have a failure in our system to, especially recognize when people.
Hey, Dr. T.
Yeah.
Always keep $375 or so on handy, and you can go file a commercial lien. You don't have to see a judge. You don't have to have a jury. And this is the way you stick it to a person who has wronged you verbally or physically. Okay. So we do have mechanisms, remedies, and recourses. However, like my grandfather and grandparents used to say, if you want to hide something from an end, put it in a book. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn to open up books and educate ourselves. And as this is one thing I admire about the NOI, the Nation of Islam, they'll take the laws, the words, learn their meanings, and then use them against you. Mm-hmm. And that's something we really need to get better at, because the laws they use against us, they're two-way streets. And mm-hmm. we just need to learn how to equip ourselves with the bullets of the law. And then that way you reduce some of the hazards of their words.
I agree with you. I mean, I certainly don't disagree with you. I just question sometimes how well that works for all of us, not just some of us, but I damn sure know that I got $375 that I can.
Let me borrow $300.
Right.
Well,
no,
he got I can damn well tell you that this process works. All right. I can damn well tell you that I've used it in my past. Okay. And I can tell you right now, there are police that don't want to see me because they know that they've got to pay me.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, I just got the cane from backstage came in. We're going over, and so I think we'll have to wrap it up for now. But we'll have to come back and keep this conversation going. Talk about Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Jackson. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about the OnlyFans murder. We'll talk about other current news. I appreciate y'all spending time with us this afternoon. It was a good talk.
I got a last thing.
Please.
At some point, I don't know if we want to go there, but I would love to talk about Kevin Samuels.
Kevin Samuels.
That's the smoke show right there.
Woo. Yeah.
Kevin Samuels.
Yeah.
What he do?
Ooh. Just YouTube.
Google. Jermaine, just Google him.
Yeah.
Just Google him and offline, let's talk about it.
Man,
hey, and then keep in mind we're in the barber shop, so every once in a while you got to throw in a sports topic, like the fact that the Lakers suck and they're firing their coach. And I'm sorry, Warren, my fault.
Damn shame.
Wait, but we got to talk about what's the coach that said that they wouldn't hire him and they are asking him to throw games.
Brian Flores.
Yeah,
Brian Flores.
Right. We got things to talk about.
Okay.
Positive news, beloved Phoenix Suns #1 in the West. That's
well, there we go. That's #1
in the league.
Let's just hope
here, boy. Sorry, Kara, you come back here.
All right.
I
saw Kara come in. All right. Peace.
I think Kara's gonna close this out. Kara, you still there? Can you hear us? Can you see us? We good to go? Okay, cool. Yeah, well, hey, again, thanks for spending the night with us, y'all. It was good. Thanks for everybody watching. Hopefully you learned something. I always do. And we got a lot to think about. Y'all have a good night.
Absolutely. Take care. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Okay, y'all.